Well, hello there, and welcome to day 10 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today I have done my first documentary feature for the series, and I've chosen a pretty solid one. I chose Three Identical Strangers, which was a 2018 film, a documentary following three men, all adopted, who by chance discover that they are triplets. And what could be quite a soft, sort of family-centric documentary, about reconnection and sort of finding people who you have such an intimate link with. It goes to some pretty strong places. So it starts with a man named Bobby, and he basically walks into college, into his new community college for the first day, when people keep coming up to him going, "Oh, hey, you're right," and like, hugging him and high-fiving him and kissing him, and people saying, "Oh, Eddie," and he's like, "Well, my name's not Eddie." It then turns out, when a guy approaches him, basically looks at him and goes, "Were you adopted?" He says, "Yes." And he says, "What's your date of birth?" And he gives it, which was 1961, and this is taking place in 1980. And then, of course, they drive across New York, find his brother, and that becomes a big news story. And then a few months later, because of the size of this thing, a pair of twins who never knew each other have just rediscovered each other. That becomes a big local news story. And then, of course, a third brother comes along and says, "Oh my God, I just found this, and I think we're triplets." And then there are sort of two channels that you follow with this. You go the path of, it's Bobby, Eddie, and David. And you sort of follow their lives because they become like an instant sensation. They're going on TV. They're sort of, people are putting out the things that are so similar about them, and the fact that they've sort of found this family, and they all come from pretty strong families individually that all sort of connect, so it becomes almost like one great big family. But then there's the other side of the documentary, and it really begins with the parents of each of these boys, who were 19 in 1980, basically saying, "How did this happen? How come none of us knew we were adopting one of a triplet? And that, you would allow these boys to be separated like this?" And then it gets to some shady places. I'm not going to spoil too much because I do think it's the experience of going through it, and the levels of twists and turns is quite the discovery. Every 10 or 15 minutes I think, okay, I don't really think this has much further to go, and then every 10 or 15 minutes that's the point at which it unveils another layer to this mystery, and to the relationships, and to things we learn about each brother, and we learn about the organisation that put them up, the adoption agency that handled them. And you learn about it really looks at things like nature versus nurture, and the idea that these boys are so similar despite the fact they are from three very different backgrounds, distinctly different backgrounds. And the fact that they are so similar in so many key ways. But then it also looks at things like mental health, and the effects that separating people like this can have, or whether someone's mental health has nothing to do with the separation, and it's something else entirely, whether it's genetic or other factors, or whether the separation at a few months old can cause problems for people when they grow up, even though they never knew of the separation in the first place. And you really do start to care about these guys, like, individually. You start to go, "Oh, I'm starting to," they're being interviewed contemporaneously, and so are their families and friends of theirs, and you start to really get a sense of each of these guys and their personalities and what really makes them different. And the film really looks at what makes them so similar, and the remarkable aspects that are so similar. And then you look at things like how different they are. and that comparison and contrast really is the sort of subtext of the film, and for the first documentary I'm doing for this web series, I found it really engaging. I mean, I was very careful to choose something that I would find quite interesting, and I will say the documentaries are something that I am interested in, but I let slip. So I'll go months or years without watching documentaries, and then I feel bad about it because I think it's a key part of filmmaking, even though it's, my background's in fiction. Documentary filmmaking is a very different kind of narrative, but an equally valid one. And so I want to make a concerted effort to watch documentaries as part of this experience, and also just to help develop me as a whole. So I'm really glad that this was my first one, because it makes me go, oh, I do want to look at more mystery documentaries and other kinds as well. I really, really recommend watching this, by the way. It's a Netflix documentary, so easily accessible. And if you're quite interested in sort of human nature, but then also sort of questionable ethics and, the question of sort of potential manipulation of individuals and what that could be, I recommend it. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again tomorrow.